Good evening, councillors and members of the public. Are we on? We're on? Fantastic. Welcome, councillors, members of the public and staff. I declare the meeting open at 7:07 p.m. My name is Scott Morrissey. I'm the Deputy Mayor and I'll be chairing tonight's meeting in the absence of our Mayor, Dr. Christina Curry. Members of the public that have registered to speak by audio-visual link on an agenda item are asked to keep your microphone muted and video off until I invite you to speak. Speakers will not be able to present material as part of their speaking time or share their screen. Everyone at this meeting is reminded to conduct themselves in a polite and professional manner, keep communication factual, use appropriate language and tone. Do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks. Defamation laws apply to addresses in a public forum. I also ask councillors to observe the requirements under the Code of Meeting Practice and Meeting Etiquette, including debate on an item will only commence once we have a mover and a seconder for the item other than a mayoral minute. The mover has a right of reply before the motion is put to a vote. Raise your hand to indicate you wish to speak, as I will determine the speaking order based on the hands as I see them. On commencement of you speaking on a motion or amendment, please indicate clearly whether you are speaking for or against the motion or amendment. You can speak for up to 5 minutes for or against a motion, and similar for any amendment. For the efficient conduct of this meeting, it is not necessary for you to repeat the matters you agree with and raised by any previous speakers. It is sufficient for you to say that you agree with the points raised. I remind all present that the video recording is an official record of council and may be made available to persons upon request in accordance with the Government Information Public Access Act 2009. No other recordings are permitted. Item 2, acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Gadigal and Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. The people of the Eora Nation, their spirits and ancestors will always remain with our waterways and the land, our Mother Earth. Moving on now to the 3, our opening prayer, and Council Officer Mr. Soot will be leading us in that prayer. Please be standing.
Almighty God, as we commence this meeting, we pray for the Mayor Christina Curry and her family for the recent and sudden loss within her family. We thank you for the community of Bayside and for the benefits of living and working in this diverse area. As we commence this meeting, inspire us with the qualities of good counsel so that the foundations of good governance may be established for Bayside Council. Give us insight to make wise decisions, integrity to face the truth, courage to make difficult choices, and the passion for the needs of others. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. We'll move now to apologies. So I've received apologies from the Mayor, Dr. Christina Curry, and Councillor McDougall. I know Councillor Saranovsky is here, so can I have a mover for that and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Barlow, seconded by Councillor Cedric. All those in favour say aye. Declare that carried. Now, before we move on, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a special guest with us tonight. Who's with us, Mr. Martin Spiteri. You here? Where's Martin? Yeah, just wanted to make sure you're there. Mr. Spiteri is a resident of Rockdale and is a tireless community worker. The Mayor had the privilege of attending the Sydney City Eastern Suburbs Volunteers Award presentation recently, which is a couple of weeks ago on the 15th of August, and our very own Mr. Spiteri was acknowledged as New South Wales Senior Volunteer of the Year 2022 for our region. So well done. Mr. Spiteri Mr. Spiteri was recognised by the Centre volunteering for his tireless work at the Benevolent Society's Greenwood College in Bexley, a day centre for older people living in the St George area. For almost 20 years, Mr. Spiteri has been assisting with the community bus, preparing meals and providing emotional support to clients and their families, and that's such a valuable thing and need in our community, so we commend you. On behalf of Bayside Council and the Mayor, Dr. Christina Curry, I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Spiteri's huge contribution and congratulate him on receiving this wonderful recognition. Please come forward.
Martin, do you want a picture with your friend who's come with you, the other volunteer? She's another volunteer.
You work together as volunteer? Fantastic. Please come forward. Well done. Come in. Thank you very much for all that you do as well. Oh, beautiful.
Very sorry to hear about her father. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very
And
much.
what I do at Greenwood, I do it, so I enjoy it
From your heart.
from my heart. And boom. So,
Well done.
some of them that scary have been that cost me the time to the center. Thank you very much.
Thank you, councillors. We'll just now move on to item number 5, which is disclosures of interest. We've probably got quite a few tonight. So has anyone not, I'll read them as they are on the screen. Has anyone not wish to make a disclosure outside of that? Hold on one second. Councillor Muscat?
Going around the circle.
Oh, sorry, I was looking for that's, I don't have any minutes last. Oh, sorry.
So specific, yeah, there's probably quite a few. There's an item tonight, CPE 22.023, where most of us will have some kind of disclosure to make. So that's what I'm asking for now.
Thank
And then
you.
if you have any addition to that, please make it known now.
I have a special disclosure as I have a pecuniary interest in item 11.3 on the basis that I have a principal residence in the area and stated I would remain in the room for the meeting and consideration for voting on it on the matter. Also have a non-significant pecuniary interest in 11.3 on the basis that I'm the president of Botany RSL Swimming Club and it is a voluntary run organisation, but I will remain in the meeting for the consideration and voting.
Thank you. Councillor Fidel, any disclosures? No. Councillor Jansen?
I'm declaring a special a pecuniary interest in item 11.3 CPE 22.023 on the basis that I have a principal place of residence as specified on the form, and stated that I'll remain in the room for consideration and voting on the matter, and I've declared this on a special disclosure. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Najee?
Yeah, thank you. I'm declaring on 10.2 a non-pecuniary interest, but I won't be taking part in the voting on the basis that I am a member of the panel of the City Eastern panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Saranovsky? Do you want to bring it up on the special disclosure?
Disclosure, as I have a particular interest in item 11.3, CP E20 023 on the basis that the site only has an interest in land in which my principal place of residence, as specified in the form, and stated would remain in the meeting for consideration and voting on that.
Well done. Thank you. You live in the OTA. Councillor Tsunis?
Well, I guess I have the same obligation. Maybe Mr. Fausto can clarify. So it's your own residential property or investment property that impacts this? I don't understand the form. It's very convoluted. I've got my solicitor to read it, but he just didn't have time this week.
The special disclosure is only available to councillors that have the matter before council, that is the planning proposal, only impacts on your principal place of residence or relatives or other associated persons' principal place of residence. If you have residential property that is impacted other than your principal place of residence or your relatives and associated persons' principal place of residence, you cannot rely on the special disclosure. You need to declare a pecuniary interest and leave the chamber. So, for example, if you have an investment property or a relative has an investment property, you cannot rely on the special disclosure, and you need to declare a pecuniary interest and leave the chamber.
On that basis of advice, I better declare the same pecuniary, but looking around the chamber, most likely we're not going to have a quorum. But
Yep.
okay, so just
General Manager?
Yep.
Through the chair, the reason to declare, as you have heard tonight, is so that you can stay in the meeting and vote on the matter, as long as the acting director says you don't have other properties. You can only rely on this if you're only talking about a primary residence or a relative's primary residence.
Okay, noted. So you'll be staying... So you'll be leaving the chamber for voting? Yes?
So The flip side of my question, Mr. Sook, is does the property need to be below 400 square metres or no, or it doesn't matter?
The property needs to be impacted. If you can, for example, put a dual occupancy on now and you can't later, it's impacted. If you can't put a dual occupancy on now and you can, if this matter is passed, then it's impacted. If there's no change, then you don't have a pecuniary interest.
All right, I'll go the other way and leave the chamber then. It's easier.
Okay.
Easier.
We're noted. And it's land. Thank you. Councillor Werner?
Yeah, I would like to declare that I've got a less than significant non-pecuniary interest in item 11.3, as and the matter won't really impact on me or my family either way, so I will stay in the chamber for voting. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Awada.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. On the same item 11.3 CPE 22023, I will declare non-pecuniary less than significant due to the fact that I've got an extended family, come from a family of 12, 6 sisters and 5 other brothers. So basically, I'm not quite sure what they own. I'll be leaving the chamber on that item.
Thank you, Councillor Awada. Councillor Barlow.
I'll just declare as a less than significant, where am I? I couldn't read it.
Special disclosure.
Declare the special disclosure has a pecuniary interest in item 11.3 on the basis that she only has an interest in land which is her principal place of residence as specified on the form, and stated she will remain in the meeting for consideration and voting on the matter.
Thank you. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'm declaring a less than significant non-pecuniary interest in item 11.3. My principal place of residence is not capable of dual lock at the moment. It will not be capable of dual lock under the state government default code. It will not be capable of dual lock if what is proposed here tonight is passed. However, depending on how the debate goes and what happens, it may well be that I have to change that, so I'm putting that on notice that I reserve the right in the event that the areas fluctuate and the frontages fluctuate. I might have to change that to significant pecuniary and call for a special disclosure exemption.
Okay, noted.
Clear as mud.
You need a solicitor as well, maybe. Councillor Douglas.
I have a few. So I also have a declare a special disclosure on 11.3 CPE 22.023, as I have a pecuniary interest in the matter because of my principal place of residency being in the area, but I will stay in the chamber to vote. Additionally, I have a significant pecuniary interest on item 10.3, which is the tender for Barton Park, as I live close by. I have a non-significant pecuniary interest on the 11.3 CPE 22.025, the draft community garden and verge garden policy, as I have both a verge garden and am part of a community garden. And I have a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in item 10.5 because I have a member of the Peaceful Bayside group, which has been campaigning for peaceful streets.
Noted. Thank you very much. Councillor Cedric.
Thank you. I too will declare less than significant pecuniary interest as I own property in the Bayside area as an investment, and so for that debate on 11.3 that previous councillors have, I will leave the chamber on that one. Thank you,
Noted.
Mr.
Thank
Deputy.
you. Councillor Jansen.
Can I just ask, is Councillor Douglas leaving the room on those, or just, yep, sorry.
Question.
Certainly the verge garden, it's significant, and you will leave the chamber.
Thank you. And I don't know if mine's up there, but I'll declare a special disclosure as I have a pecuniary interest in 11.3. My principal place of residence is in Botany, and I will remain in the chamber for voting. Thank you. Any other disclosures? Thank you. Okay, thank you, councillors. Item 6, minutes of the previous meeting. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Awada, second by Councillor Tsunis. Before we do, there is one change to that, in that the presentation for the Rockdale City Suns Illinden Football Club, the girls' team who were here, was not recorded in the minutes. So we're just going to, that's the only change, we're going to add that into the minutes. Thank you. All those in favour of those changes in the other minutes, say aye. Declare that carried. Thank you. Item 7, we've got one mayoral minute tonight, councillors, and I'll read that on behalf of Mayor Curry. And the motion is, oh, it's up there, great, transition to net zero. So the motion is that Council notes the detailed work being undertaken by Resilient Sydney and the launch of the Bayside Emissions Tracker, which tracks annual greenhouse gas emissions by source and describes our net zero pathway to 2050. Resilient Sydney is a part of a global network commencing in 2015 and launching a 5-year strategy in mid-2018 to guide the 33 metro councils to prepare for, respond to and recover from physical and social stresses and crises. Bayside is a foundation member of the Resilient Sydney Steering Committee. Providing credible data is one of the underpinning platforms of the work being delivered by Resilient Sydney. I'm very pleased to advise that last week a greenhouse emissions tracker was launched by Resilient Sydney and their sustainability consultant Kinesis. The tracker is a data-driven tool that captures Bayside's annual greenhouse emissions for gas, electricity, transport and waste. It describes the reduction to net zero pathway to 2050, showing the incremental and cumulative impact of interventions and improvements under the 2021 policy settings. Interventions include things such as reductions from organics, reductions from fuel switching and reductions from recyclable packaging. This pathway will set the priorities for the newly formed Bayside Environment and Resilience team as they develop our broader environment and resilience strategy. Our community told us, as we all know, during the development of the Bayside 2032 Community Plan, strategic plan, that the environment, resilience and climate emergency were their highest priority. This emissions data and the expertise we are attracting to our organisations means that we are well placed to deliver on these priorities. A demonstration of the tracker will be provided to councillors at a future information session. While the tracker is an internal tool to guide the development of our resilience strategy, it will also inform community consultations throughout this year as we develop and explore the actions needed to reach net zero emissions targets by 2050. Our Bayside Resilience Strategy, which I'm pleased to say will be developed in the coming months, will reference and address each of the areas for improvement identified in the tracker. Any speakers to the motion, councillors?
I just want to congratulate Council on this move, but also suggest that we look at a midterm target as well for our journey to net zero 2050. It's a common thing to have a midterm target rather than just waiting till 2050 to reach net zero.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor. I'm sure that's something we'll explore. This is about the launch of the tracker so we can get started and start to see some data, which we don't at the moment, but point taken. Thank you. Councillor Tsunis?
So I'm guessing in the corollary that was said there, we're talking about the council as opposed to Bayside, because you kept on saying Bayside.
Yeah.
You didn't say Bayside Council. So it's Bayside Council. Can I ask what percentage of Bayside does the council actually become an emission partner? In other words, are we 5% of the community? Are we 3? Are we 2? Obviously, we need a starting point. When we entered in the agreement with Bayside, with Resilient Sydney, we were something. The council's obviously going to grow over time, but how big are we as a percentage of the wider community? Because obviously we were talking baselines and trying to work out what changes have occurred over the time, and it's a long time till 2050.
Yep. Sure. You good, General Manager?
Through the chair, I'll have to actually take that on notice, because getting the exact figure of our contribution to the community's overall measure, that's not included in this project. This is the community's journey to net zero emission. It's not council, it's actually the whole of Bayside that has been mapped, and it includes things like power consumption, it includes emissions from our travel, it includes waste across the whole LGA. So it's, and there is a lot we will be showing you at future information sessions, the waterfall diagrams as to how we're going to get there over the next 25 years. Yes, it's a long time, but of course it's a really stretched target when you're talking about the whole community.
So from the perspective of the commercial world, how do we know how much fuel they use and how much they expend and how much they've changed? I can understand you can knock on the door of all the petrol stations in our area and say, okay, in 2022 you were buying this and now we're buying this because now we have electric cars. There's a disparity. How are we going to do all that? But to me it seems like a massive, massive task to be able to go out to the commercial world and say, can you tell us how much rubbish you're creating now, how much rubbish you'll be creating in a year's time, or 3 years' time, or 4 years' time, or 5 years' time, because there's a lot of entities out there. How are we doing that?
Through the chair, greater minds than ours are also going to be contributing to this. So, of course, for waste, we have some great data that we're collecting because we have responsibility for a fair proportion of that. But we are reliant, and through kinesis, as the Deputy Mayor said, a lot of the measures are coming through information being collected through state agencies, we're actually not going to be the ones going out and measuring ourselves. We'll be relying on other data sets that will be given information, we'll be given that information. It will be our role as council to take some leadership on how we can influence, advocate and change community behaviour. But when we give you the briefing on this, we'll be talking about the source of the data, where it's coming from, which federal or state agency is currently collecting it.
Sure. Councillor Jansen?
I think this is a really exciting and important initiative for the community, and I support this Merrill Minute. I think it's a really fantastic opportunity to gather baseline data for our community and to map that and to develop initiatives moving forward. So I congratulate this Merrill Minute.
Thank you. Councillor Werner?
I'd also like to congratulate staff on this and support this Merrill Minute. I think this is an incredible opportunity, and I believe that I had the privilege of seeing some of the resilient software when I first became a councillor, and I'd just like to say it looks very sophisticated, and I just congratulate the staff, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can do with all this information. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Any other speakers? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against no, I declare that carried. Thank you. Number 8, councillors, is items by exceptions prior to the public forum. So we'll deal with the remainder of the business paper by exception. Where the public forum items, what number is 10.2 is the public forum, so that will be dealt with immediately after this. Some others. So we've got 10. So what I'm going to ask you is, you want to pull anything out for debate. So if you want to debate something, give me the number and we'll do that. So far I have 10.2, 10.3, 11.3, which is the CPE 22023. Oh, sorry, 022, 23, 24, and 25. Oh, because division. That's what I have so far. I'll just go around. Oh. Why is that? Oh, sorry, Patonk. There's a public speaker as well. 22021. We have a public speaker, so that'll be dealt with separately. 11.1, 22.02.1. Hold on, I'll go around the room, councillors, because it just keeps us. Councillor Muscat, anything? Councillor Fardell? No. Councillor Jansen? 10.8. Progress plan, thank you. Councillor Naji? Noted, thank you. Councillor Tsunis? 22.021. Thank you. Councillor Werner? 10.4, no. You want to pull, and take that out? Thank you. Councillor Rawada? Nothing. Councillor Barlow? Sorry, 22020 is a basketball. What I? Oh, sorry, yeah, BTC, yeah. 02, which one is it? 020. Oh, CW, sorry, yeah. City Works Assets. That's Lena Street, 22028. Yep, got it, thank you. Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Could you just confirm that we're pulling out 11.3 CPE 22.023? That's the
Yes.
minimum. We're pulling that out? Thank
Yep,
you.
we are. Thank you. Councillor Douglas? No more? Councillor Cedrak? No, thank you. It's all right, that's okay. Yeah. Okay, councillors, so what we're just, we're going to be moving the following items to be dealt with by exception. And that is 10.1, 10.5, 10.6, 10.7, 10.9, 10.10, and then within 11.1, which is the minutes of committees, we will be dealing with 22019, 020, 022, 023. That's coming out. Yeah. 11.2, we're now dealing with 22.008 and 009. In 11.3, they're all pulled out except for 22026. In 11.4, there's only one item that's coming out, which is the Betancourt. All of 11.5, sorry? Oh, sorry, I missed. 11.4, we're pulling both of those out. 020 and 021. Thank you, I do have that. 11.5, nothing in 11.5 is coming out. 11.6 and 11.7 as well. I'm leaving the notice of motions in, just in case anyone wants to present those. That's it. So, can I have a mover that we deal with those items by extension? Moved by Councillor Jansen, seconded by Councillor Douglas. All those in favour say aye. Against no. Declare that carried. Thank you. So that's all that done. You have to go back. So now we do public forum.
Yes.
Thank you, councillors. Okay, we're up to item 9, which is the public forum. We have 2 speakers tonight, councillors, and the matters will be dealt with immediately after those speakers. The first one is 10.2, which is the planning proposal 215 to 235 O'Riordan Street and 1 to 3 Ewan Street in Mascot. And we have Mr. Ian Cady, planner from, a planner who is the applicant's representative. Is Mr. Cady present here? Yeah, please come up, Mr. Cady, thank you. And you have 5 minutes. Sorry, just 1 second. With Councillor No's got to excuse himself. Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair and councillors. As you'd recall, I've presented to council at the last meeting, and so tonight it will only be me, and I'll try to be a bit briefer than the various presentations. Just emphasising that this planning proposal relates only to a change of the floor space ratio or FSR control applying to the site, and we understand that councillors have now had a detailed briefing from staff. I'd just like to emphasise that this proposal accords with council's local strategic planning statement, in addition to the district plan produced by the state government. It is consistent with all the relevant built form provisions that apply to the land, and will be consistent with the surrounding development that is emerging on all surrounding sites. While the FSR is proposed to increase from 3 to 1 to 5.2 to 1, there is no change proposed to the zoning, the building height, or any other built form control applying to the site. proposal will deliver significant additional employment within the existing built form controls, in addition to the inclusion of medical facilities which have been identified as required, and a voluntary planning agreement to deliver $12 million towards community facilities. I'd emphasise that there are no directly affected residents and no objections have been received to public exhibition of this proposal. As detailed in the Council Officer's report, there will be no unreasonable environmental impacts arising from this proposal. Transport for New South Wales has raised no objection, and both the Council and the Bayside LPP have previously endorsed this proposal. A site-specific DCP will be adopted in consultation with Council Officers to resolve the detailed matters. And I would put to Council that after an exhaustive planning process over several years, this matter has now resolved all necessary matters and is appropriate to proceed to the Department of Planning and Environment for finalisation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cady. Thank you, Councillor. We have a recommendation.
Could I move the officer's recommendation, please?
Moved by Councillor Hannah. We got a seconder. Councillor Barlow. Councillor Hannah, do you wish to speak?
We did have a very detailed information session on this and I was very grateful for it. I had some questions that I had answered and I'm confident that what's being proposed here is suitable for the area. I don't see any detrimental effects, so I don't see that we should be placing an impediment in the way of this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Owada?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy. Look, I'm also happy to support the officer's recommendation. We go back to the 30th of October. I mean, it did come to this council and I was one of the councillors that actually supported to go forward. And as Councillor Hannah said, like with the GM briefing that we had last week, I can't really see one reason why we shouldn't go with the officer's recommendation. So basically, and I have to also point out that notification have gone out to, I think, quite a number around the site. We haven't had one objections to this, so I can't really see a reason why I couldn't support the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Councillor Owada. Councillor Barlow?
Well, as I second it, but I also was the person that got it moved to a GM briefing, and I congratulate the staff on the details that they gave us. And have a looking, I didn't go over there, but I got Street View. I remember now you can look at everything now on Google, and I can see why it'd be great to have a better development there. It's old, it's it's industrial, so I'm quite happy to support it, even with the increase in the density, because I think it's been cleverly designed, and I do thank the staff for the very detailed briefing they gave us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Any other speakers? Okay, I'll put the recommendation. This will be by division, as it's a planning matter. So I'll go around the room and please state clearly if you're for or against. Councillor Muscat? For. Councillor Fidel? Councillor Jansen? Councillor Sarabanovsky? Councillor Sunis? Councillor Werner? Councillor Owada? Councillor Barlow? Councillor Hannah? Councillor Douglas? Councillor Cedrak? And I'm against. But I declare that. All right. Declare the motion carried. Thank you, councillors. Sorry? Yep. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. So, Mr. Cady, that's been endorsed by council. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Councillor Naji, can someone just invite him back into the room, please? We're moving now, councillors, to item 11.4, which is the Petonk Court in Bexley. We have one speaker speaking for the committee's recommendation. That's Peter Neal. Is Mr. Neal in the room? Please come forward. Thank you. You have 5 minutes. We'll just wait 30 seconds. We've got 2 people out, so there we go. When you're ready. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, councillors, I won't take up a lot of your time. My name's Peter Neal. You might remember my friends and I from the Petonk Club who visited the last council meeting a few months back. We're here again tonight to affirm our commitment, to reassure you of our commitment, and to express our gratitude for the interest Council's shown thus far in the building of a Petonk facility in Bexley Park. Quick reminder, Petonk, French bowls, metal balls that look like they belong in a cannon, lobbed into the air towards a small ball called the cochonnet, the little pig. Closest to the small ball wins. When I was wondering about what to focus on when addressing you this evening, there were many possibilities. Should I focus on the benefits of playing Petonk, an accessible game for all, regardless of mobility, status or age? Mobility status or age. Several of us here tonight played in a competition last weekend in Newcastle where competitors ranged in age from 20 to 83. Should I focus on the obvious health and social benefits for older citizens in the community, the possibilities for inclusion of people with disability, the cultural and linguistically diverse aspect of the game in Australia? 53% of citizens in the Bayside municipality born speaking a language other than English. 4 language groups to be found amongst my co-players here tonight. And how this dovetails with the Council's Doing It Differently initiative and how good it would look for the municipal brand. Any one of these aspects is worthy of separate discussion, in my opinion. So, what's the deal with Petonk? What's the attraction here? What am I on about? Well, customarily, the ball is thrown like this. Finishing, body open, arm raised. Hi.
No, that's shocking.
Hi.
Sorry, please.
So there you have it, really. Exuberance. That's a good word to describe one of the best attractions of the game. Exuberance, bubbling up from shared moments. It's easy to forget its existence as we get older, more serious, more self-preoccupied, more consumed by the world. Of course, it'd be ridiculous to claim that the sport of Petonk has a monopoly on exuberance over other sports, but perhaps in the domain of physical activity, it's one of the more inclusive, accessible paths to it. Once again, we really appreciate your support and we thank you for what you've done thus far and for giving us your time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Well spoken. Councillor, I just got a recommendation moved by Councillor Hannah. Yes, seconded by Councillor Barlow.
Yeah, I just wanted to draw your attention, and I thank the speaker for tonight's presentation. It's really quite exciting. What I would like to do is add that point 3, if people are in agreement with that prior to finalisation of plans and before commencement of construction, interested Petonk players be consulted on site to ensure the Petonk court is constructed in a manner that is compliant and fit for purpose. If I could have do I need a seconder for that?
You've got it. That's fine.
Okay,
yeah.
thanks. I just wanted to make sure that we got that in there because, as I've said here previously, we don't want to botch this. And I really am looking forward to the cutting of the ribbon, complete with croissants, fromage, and a curry. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hanna. Councillor Tsunis.
Mr. Deputy Chair, I guess, or whatever the term is tonight, just through you, through the General Manager, what's the timeline on this? If we're waiting for a grant application, say that falls through, is there a time-specific pathway that we're chasing? Because maybe we should allocate some money to it, and then if the grant falls through, then we can still continue and do something by a certain period, because I don't want to have to talk about croissants and baguettes in 6 months' time. So if we can get it done in a reasonable amount of time, given the financial availability, because I can't see it being a very exuberant amount of funding required. Can we get an answer to that?
Through the chair, the expectation is that we will know in October or November the outcome of the grant. If we're not successful, and we are very hopeful that we will be, of course, if we're not successful, then the intention would be to immediately start on the preliminaries with a view to coming to council for the December quarterly review for a budget allocation at that point. I did give an undertaking at committee that I would be able to describe for Councillor Barlow what the relative components of the project are. And I can say that there's at least 25% or more of the grant is for the surrounds, for the paths, for the landscaping, for seating, things of that nature. In total, we've applied for 78,000 for the overall project, including contingency costs. And if need be, we could trim that back if we were doing it ourselves.
So essentially, what's the actual cost of the beton court? Is it crushed stone? I think Councillor Hanna was talking about some crushed stone. Surely it couldn't cost more than $20,000, even in council money.
Through the chair, excavation, concrete edging, concrete path, we are going to do some of it ourselves. Crushed granite, that would be equivalent, I'd say, if you don't do anything around it at all and you have no contingency, you have a little bit of design, you'd still need about 40,000.
Thank you. Councillor Barlow.
Just the fact apparently that they don't want concrete edging, so that's why we needed that extra part in, that you need, before you finalise it, you really have to speak to the people that use it. A concrete edging apparently damages their balls, because Councillor Hanna was talking about, so that is a difference. So that's a ballpark figure, and okay, there is other things that are going around it so that they don't, they've got a nice footpath to walk to it. So it's only a ballpark figure, and I think if it's whatever the edging should be, and hopefully by then we've gone to Randwick and looked at their ones as well.
Yeah, we've got that in there prior to finalisation of plans, so they'll definitely be consulted.
that's
We'll
right.
consult the experts who are going to be using it.
That's
so.
right.
Any other speakers, councillors? That being said, we'll put the motion before us, moved by councillors Hanna and Barlow. All those in favour say aye. Against, no. I declare that carried. Thank you. So it's been carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Moving on now to the reports. We're up to item 10.3. We've got a disclosure there from Councillor Douglas. That's the only reason we're pulling that out anyway. So this is the tender for Barton Park. Can I have a mover, please? To Councillor Tsunis, second by Councillor Jansen. Any speakers to the motion? No speakers. All those in favour say aye. Against, no. Declare that carried. Thank you. Please call Councillor Douglas back in. 10.4. 10.4 is because it was a supplementary report, right? Councillors, moving now on to item 10.4, which is the proposed business development activities The reason this is here is because it's a supplementary report to what was presented in committee. The update, the supplement is included in the business paper, and we'll take that as read. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Sedrak, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Sorry, I got you on the corner of my eye. Thank you. Any speakers to this motion? Councillor Werner?
Yeah, I would like to congratulate staff on this. It looks like there's a lot of really worthwhile activities planned. I've just got a question about item 10, which is a report, and I believe there was some discussion about that, and you brought up some things, Councillor Morrissey, about the cost of that report. I've got a couple of questions. One is, to what extent will that report benefit local small business? And I think I can see here that it's allocated to the local area funding. I just wanted to check where the funding for that was coming from. Thank you.
Through the Director.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The impact on local small business is outlined in the summary covering the report, and that is that any impact on the economic development or economic health of the entire region, by its very nature, impacts employment significantly, impacts the number of people who are around to use small business, the number of people who buy lunch every day, who go and have coffees, the number of people staying in the hotels likewise. So what we're looking at is more broadly, what is the economic impact on Bayside as a whole, the big businesses, the impact of the changes to the airport, and the flow-on impact to smaller business. So does that answer your question?
Thank you. It kind of does, although I guess what it'll be, I'm just imagining what the report is and why we need to spend $30,000 on it. I guess what it will show is, maybe how many less people are going to be in the area because they're using the other airport. Is there going to be any suggestions for small business, how they can cope, or is it basically just maybe a little bit more detail about the kinds of things that'll be in that report?
Yeah, there's a lot of detail in the proposal for the report that I can go through with you separately. But we would be looking at conducting an audit of the major businesses in the area, just to look at what we're talking about, and identifying the economic clusters and corridors. We'd be looking at identifying international case studies of economic corridors where they've been impacted by the emergence of another aerotropolis, if you like. We'd also be talking to our partners at the Sydney Airport and asking them to come along and deliver a briefing for councillors on the work that they're doing to counteract the impacts. So this is probably longer term planning, but being prepared for any impact that it will have on the local business of the area. We develop an economic prospectus for Bayside businesses, so there's a whole range of strategies that we could roll out to be prepared for those impacts as they come upon us.
Sorry, can I just, the other question was, where's the money for it coming from?
It's proposed to come from the local area fund, from an apportioning of the local area fund.
Okay, and that's paid for by the local business?
Yes, by the 10 areas in the local area fund.
So just for clarity, the motion before us is 175 to move from the local area fund to fund this program of work. Councillor Douglas, did you?
I also want to congratulate the staff on this fine initiative. Having grown up in Newcastle and lived through the closure of the BHP steelworks there, And also having lived in Tasmania and the closure, the end of the forest industry there, it's so important that we have this foresight and foreplanning for a massive change of industry like this is foreshadowing with the new Western Sydney Airport. I particularly just wanted to pull out a couple of things. The spend map analytical software application is really insightful, and I would love it when you do the presentation that is indicated if we could have a comparative to surrounding areas in terms of that spend map, which goes into visitor local spend, resident escape spend, resident online spend or whatnot. We can compare how we stand to our neighbours. Additionally, the reference chart 3, which has the breakdown of the different suburbs and the total area spend. I'd love us to be able to break that apart a bit more in that briefing session and really look at why that amount of money in those areas and what we can learn from each suburb, potentially the ones that are doing really well, how can we compare that to the ones that are not doing so well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Well, just
Councillor
with
Barlow?
the comparison with the local area funds, it's not every shopping centre, but you've just got to go through Bexley with the horrendous traffic that some people around here know about. But you ought to see, what they've done is brilliant. And because we don't have an arcade there now, I've got to do the long walk around. So you walk past and you see all that really good garden beds. So it can improve the area. It's about, and it is I know there's some really bad awnings, there's some shop fronts. One we can never ever change, and we've got nothing to say about it. But in the long term, the local area fund is for those shoppers. So Bexley is I was very sceptical about upgrading it, but it looks fantastic.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Is there any other speakers, councillors? Question for me is the 30,000 an internal cost, or is there a consultant? Who's doing the report?
Through you, Mr Chair, we haven't determined that yet. We waited until we got the budget approved.
Okay.
So it would be a combination of both. So doing a business audit is something that we would do internally because we have the data ourselves.
Sure.
Perhaps some of the economic analysis we might engage a small level of consultancy. But wherever possible, we work in-house.
Yeah, thank you. I think Councillor Werner was referencing some comments made in the committee meeting, and I still have concern that it's a $30,000 report. So I'm supporting it because I think we do need to support our local business, particularly Bexley as per that example, but all around we hopefully can use this report to give us some strategic direction on how to capture the people who land rather than drive through Bayside home, that we can actually keep them in here, or if someone's got a stopover, we can keep them here for a day or a night or an afternoon, whatever it might be. So I'm supporting it cautiously. I'm really hoping we get value for money, and I'm supporting. It's $30,000 for a report, and I'm hoping that that's going to give us some really good insights, more so to help our small businesses who are really struggling, and how we can, if we as a council can group them together and get some economies of scale and get people to come to a certain shopping village or some sort of attraction while they're here, rather than just drive past it, I think that'll be a good investment. Councillor Saravanowski.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I didn't realise it was $170,000 I was trying to get in the report. To save a bit of money, common sense should always prevail. What we should be doing is talking to the Chambers of Commerce. First of all, Bexley's pretty active. There's 2 in Rockdale. I'm not sure how many's in all the BEC that we're involved in that page of. Because as the elder statesman here, there is stacks of reports and whatever that we have in administration, but nothing's happened. The reason I say nothing's happened is unless the councillors, unless we drive it, trust me, nothing will happen, because all will be is a report on it. Walleye Creek, for example, is a buzz at the moment. They've got all these specialty shops. I didn't think it would work, but it actually does work. Every single shop there is busy, busy, busy. You don't need a consultant to tell you what you should do down in Walleye Creek. Bexley, you do the study on Bexley will tell you know what the problem is at Bexley? The traffic. The reason why they don't go to Bexley, and I've been working very closely with the Chamber of Commerce, there's no parking. What we tried a few years ago, and probably it's in someone's drawer, what we identified Bexley was to have similar to Newtown, outdoor dining, encourage them to do outdoor dining and not charge them for the outdoor dining area. The biggest complaints you get in Brighton at the moment is Big Brother is down there issuing fines, issuing inspection fees, which I understand, but it's the way we go about it. I can't comment on the other side, what the issues are. Well, I should say, Botany Road, when I go to this few of the restaurants there, biggest problem there is the traffic. Now, we save 170,000 on it. And the people in Brighton and Ramscat Shopping Centre, for example, down at Ramscat, we've done all these works, it's great, it's improved the area immensely, but I'm not too sure we get a consultant of some sort that's going to tell us that the shopping centre has shifted down to near Coles's. I got excited last year, but it was a false excitement. We're looking at pop-up restaurants. I'm not sure what happened to that. Through a year, can I ask the General Manager what happened to it? Like, I got all excited. Well, pop-up restaurants.
The Director will address that question.
Through you, Mr Chair, the pop-up restaurants and the investigation of all of that is contained here within the report. So it is one of the strategies that we'd be committing the majority of the money towards making those physical improvements in those 10 areas.
Yeah.
That's $100,000 of the 175 to scope all of the opportunities for outdoor dining, for
Yep.
pop-up areas, for areas that jut out into the street wherever it's safe. All of the kinds of things that you've seen around in other areas like the city where there are.
I have no problems with that, but I don't feel comfortable spending 175,000 where we can go down to all the shops. You go down to Uncle, you know where Uncle would tell you shopping centre, lack of parking.
Yeah.
So if we want to keep people, same story. So I'm saving the council $170,000.
Through you, Mr Chair, the parking in Arncliffe is there, but it doesn't have any signage. So signage to the existing
can do that.
council car parks is part of this proposal.
Yeah, let's.
So
I
people
can't find
can
parking when I
find
go to this kebab shop.
So-
I don't know what the name of the shop is.
Maybe just run
All I'm trying to say
what
is,
the 100,000 that's actually going to improve do that placement. So I've just asked the Director to just go over what I think it's $100,000 budget to actually improve place making things.
Well, as long as we're delivering that, like
Yeah,
I mentioned
that's-
to the general manager, I went to this particular shop in the shopping centre, and what they've got is permanent outdoor areas. It's covered up. It looks great. It's cheap. It's great. I mean, one of the shopkeepers in Brighton showed me the other day some sketches where he wants to have like an umbrella, but of course we don't allow that. There's a shopkeeper at Bexley, next to the old opposite the post office. They've got these huge pot plants, and every day they have to put it in, put it out, put it in, put it every day. And they say to me the most logical thing is, it's silly to put it in and out. It's like, why don't you just leave it there? I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
You know, like.
The Director will address some of those queries.
Yeah, as long as we're, what I'm saying is, I don't want to blow 170,000 and get a report that's sitting on someone's desk collecting dust. So if in that 175, if we've got 170, like for example, down at Ramscat Shopping Centre, I don't know, Councillor Cedric has been approached, they wanted to put more pergolas in the Bill Batley Reserve, or the Bill Batley Plaza. No, there's a request for additional. So as long as we can physically see, and the shopkeepers and the residents can physically see on it. It's like an old ad they used to have many years ago. This guy on the radio used to say, "I've got all these specials, except you can't find me." He went broke.
Thank you. Yep.
Through you, Mr Chair, some of the things that we're proposing in the expenditure of that local area fund, in those local areas, is to undertake a location-based scoping and present a multi-layered costed proposal to implement parking wayfinding so that people can find all of the hidden council car parks around those shopping areas that are located in the back streets and sometimes difficult to find unless you know where you're going. Streetscape beautification through lighting, parklets to improve gathering spaces, increase dwell time and support outdoor dining, and utilising the local area funds. We develop those scopes and then come back to you and talk to you about what we're proposing to present in each of those areas. Understanding that this local area fund comes from a fund that is raised from the local business ratepayers. So it's been going into a fund for quite a significant amount of time now, and to be spent on exactly these types of projects in the local business area. So it's not coming out of general revenue, it's sitting in a reserve for local business.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Tsunis?
We can take the money out of West Botany Street and spend it somewhere as well. So my question is, it's all terrific. What are we doing with Wazir Street? What are we doing with Rockdale out here? We spoke about this 6 months ago, a year ago. Councillor Ibrahim was throwing chairs around at the time saying, no one's doing anything, all right? It's great to talk, but we're not getting anywhere. Parking is there, people can find the parking. If someone wants to go and shop at Bexley, I guarantee you, if there's a parking spot, they will fill it, because every spot is always full when we go to Bexley. Councillor Bayo, correct? Rhetorical question. They're always full. How often do we, my question is, how often do we police the parking arrangements in Bexley? Okay, we send the car around, but are we aware that the signage has come off so people can park their forklifts and they can park their pallets and do whatever they need to do, because life's easy that way? And the rangers don't get out of their cars, they just drive around and keep on going. So that we need to get some feet on the ground to actually go and have a look and see what's going on. Same thing at Ramsgate, along Alfred Street. They've taken the signs down, they've sprayed over them. Okay, they're back now. Finally we found out that they were missing. But we tend to take ages and ages and ages to see that something's not right. We can't wait for the community to say, by the way, this sign's been sprayed over, when you've got a little maintenance room, 100 metres, or not even 20 metres, and our guys drive, our staff drive past it every day. So it's a little bit disappointing. Great, spend $175,000 to be told what? That we need more parking? We know that. Let's find parking. Let's facilitate what these extremities need. We had a grant from the state government a few months ago to have a festival. Where do we have it? At Brighton. Why do we have it at Brighton? What's wrong with the rest of the LGA? Why can't we have something at Bexley, Bexley North, all these other places? Why can't we share the love? It has to be spent at Brighton, because why? I don't understand it. It's a good thing.
Councillor Sinner, I think we're getting a little bit away
No,
into an
but
events program.
it's still about the $175,000.
Well,
the $175,000 out of 10 areas, 17,000 roughly per area. If you want to talk about the 10 areas, spend it back on that particular. You don't have to get a report to tell you that you haven't got wayfinding signs. You don't need a report to say there's a lot of traffic there, we can't get to the shops. You don't need that. As Councillor Barlow said, we've done a lot of tree plantings and things along Bexley Road, which has made a great improvement, albeit the people who've driven into them and done all sorts of things. That's what people want, to improve the amenity of their area. It's not about, let's do a report and see what happens down the track, because the basic economics of an area will drive it. If somewhere's going to be busy, it's going to be busy. The opportunity to go and park and buy a loaf of bread or buy whatever you need is there. People will have that opportunity. But when you go like to Wazir Street, you can't find a spot. You just got to keep on going. You go to wherever else you can go. We've got to sit down and have a strategy of those particular locations and say, okay, what's the problem here? We're all pretty smart here. We all live in the area. We can have a conversation. Well, some of us do.
Yeah.
We have a conversation around what's the immediate need, and then we go and search the opportunity. You don't get a consultant from God knows where who drives past. What's that consultant we had once, Councillor Salvanovsky, that drove past? Transport for New South Wales. He took his kid to soccer and made a decision based on that. We can't do that. We need to actually put our feet on the ground, walk the talk, and get a result. Wazir Street again. It's in my ward. Out here at Rockdale again. It's $2 shops and a couple of banks. There's nothing else. It's gone. It's gone. We can talk the talk. We can spend $575,000. It won't change anything. So that's my view. We've got to actually sit down and strategise on getting some results. It's great to talk it up and have the occasional festival and say, okay, let's do this in the park. Okay, there's an instantaneous benefit to a few people in the community. Then it disappears. So that's my view. Great, spend money, but spend it so we can get a result.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor. I support I understand what you're saying, and that talks to my point that we're making this. I see it as an investment. A lot of people are talking about having a strategy, having a starting point. That's what this is. There's money there. It's reserved for this purpose. And as a council, I think it's up to us to keep everybody accountable to make sure there's deliverables at the end of that. So, and that was a similar concern that I raised. So I think this is, given that the funding is there, it's in reserve for this specific purpose. This is the starting point where it hasn't happened before, and now it's about accountability. So that's my view. Councillor Jansen.
Look, I've heard what everyone's had to say, and I understand those points. I think it's actually a good initiative. There's a new member of staff that's employed to undertake these initiatives. So this is a starting point. There's a lot of detail in those reports that's very interesting, and I believe this staff member is going to be undertaking a lot more engagement with business to stimulate that economic opportunity. But some of those placemaking initiatives that are mentioned in the report in relation to business, I'd like to see them overlapping with some of Council's existing events and activities in town centres, and how that's going to work strategically, because I feel we can leverage a lot more for small business off those events and activities. So moving forward, I'd like to see that sort of kind of strategically linked to what we already do have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Naji?
Yeah, can we put the motion to a vote? Thank you.
Yes, we will. Right of reply? Yep.
Just quickly. Through you, Deputy Mayor. Look, I think there's some key points here that we need to, we've all got some worrying point of view about this amount of spend. And every time we do one of these reports, the big issue that we've got is that we do nothing with these reports. And everyone's mentioned, every ward councillor knows their issue in their ward. These are the people you need to be asking. I think you need to be asking, and it says there in the report, the Chamber of Commerce, there's a lot of this money that doesn't need to be spent. I understand that it's there. We're all reluctant to vote against it. We all want to vote for it. I guess if there's a way to spend less, then try to achieve that. We want to vote for it, but if we've got that information already about parking, then let's just activate it.
Thank you, Councillor Cedric. We'll now vote on the item. There's a motion before us, moved by Councillors Cedric and Douglas. All those in favour say aye. All those against? I declare it carried. Thank you. Councillors, we're now on item 10.8. Asked to take that out. I'm not sure which councillor, which is the 6 monthly progress report.
Oh, that was me.
Moved by Councillor Jansen, seconder, Councillor Tsunis.
Sorry, I don't have my papers before me right now, but I just thought it was a comprehensive and interesting report. Just had a question in regards to item 4.4.3, which is on page 237. There was a mention of the CRM dashboard winning a recent local government award. Just wanted to know a little bit more about that, and because that's the first I heard of it in the report, and I thought if that's the case, that's something that we should actually be celebrating.
GM.
Um,
Thank you.
Through the chair, councillors, can I suggest that we bring to a committee or to an info session some demonstrations of the dashboard? We have, Business Transformation have developed a number of dashboards and we are certainly tracking our CRMs much more closely now and providing that information to managers. So I think to be able to see it and experience it and understand what data and what measurements the service units are able to now have and analyse would be really useful.
Thank you. Suggest do you want us to add that as a point that
Oh,
you demonstrated
yes, if we
information
could,
centre?
but there was the mention of it winning a local government award, so I wanted to know more about that award. And
We got a shortlisted, highly commended for innovation award.
There we go. So if you just add to the motion that a demonstration of the dashboards be presented to council to interested councillors at a future information session. Thank you, councillors. There's a motion before us, moved by councillors Jansen and Souness. All those in favour say aye. Against, no. I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We're now on to minutes of committees. Item CS 22021, response to the notice of motion to reduce the use of the number of people smoking. Moved by councillor Cedric, second by councillor Muscat. Oh, sorry. Sorry?
My concern is, and the question is, the notice of motion to reduce the use of people smoking along the footmark foreshore, that's been floating around now for at least for at least 4 months, I think, when I first put it up. The signage that I would assume by now would have been supporting that has only occurred around the Brighton area. People walking around Brighton area, they've got that little sign that's got the smoking symbol and the barbecue. No heavy barbecue in the area. That hasn't occurred around all the other established areas that we spoke about in terms of Kaima, Monterey bars, Sanditon bars, and Ramscat beach bars. The signage hasn't run up. I understand that it's really hard for us to regulate the behaviour of individuals there. We can regulate if they throw the butt on the ground, if they're chugging away, we can only say to them, they can ignore us. But the point is, if the signage there, then people frown on them, especially on the foreshore where the promenade is, the walkway is. We've done a lot of work around Brighton itself, which I acknowledge and is fantastic, but these other satellite areas need to be dealt with, and I don't know if we need a similar sort of thing up along the beaches up along on the other side. I don't know, I can't speak for that, but we need to roll something out as we're moving into summer. It's great having the garbage bins, it's great having ambassadors walking around saying here's some sunscreen, here's some soap, blah blah blah, but we're still not mitigating that smoking in the areas where individuals congregate, especially children. So I guess if there's a question to be asked, will the relevant director be rolling up our signs over the next few weeks and months, or we do have to wait, do have to put up another notice of motion, or implement something else to trigger that to happen, so they're up well before we get into the summer season, which we're in autumn in a couple of days, and we're going to be in summer before we know it.
Okay. Sorry? Yeah? Through the director? Ms. Dawson?
Through you, Mr Chair, the staff are out at the moment doing audits of the no smoking signs that currently exist along the beach. All of the regulatory signage along the beach has no smoking signs on it, clearly displayed with all the other regulations required. And the report that we've got in front of us says that additional signage will be placed along Hook Park in accordance with option 3, and our intention is to have that done before the commencement of the summer foreshore program, or at least during the summer foreshore program.
Thank you. Councillor Sedrak.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Chair. Can I also thank the staff and the directors for their involvement with this? This has been, I know, going for a long time, and I want to thank Councillor Tunis in particular, who has been working on this for the previous term and again for this term. And I think this is a really important issue, and I actually concur with Councillor Tunis. It's not just in that Brighton Bay Street area. There are those parameters down further south, and I think what the director, as well as the officers, have put in a real good options for us, and starting the summer foreshore program, so it's just around the corner. And I think you're right, if it goes down from Brighton all the way going south in those main areas where there's playgrounds, people in there, the signs look amazing, they're very clear, they're easy to understand. It says no smoking or thank you for not smoking, to be more positive. So well done, and thank you for everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Sedrak. We'll now vote on the item CS 22021. All those in favour say aye. Against no. Declare that carried. Thank you. Moving on, councillors, now to 11.3. We've got 4 items there. We'll start with 22.022, the draft Bayside Comprehensive Development Control Plan. Have a mover for that? Anyone want to move that? Councillor Werner. I'll second it. Yep. Thank you, councillors. We have a motion before us. This is by division. Is there anyone wishing to speak to this matter? All good? Okay, I'll put this motion. As I said, it is by division, so we'll go around the room. Councillor Fardell. That's right. I'll just 4, yes. Councillor Muscat, 4. Jansen, 4. Councillor Naji, 4. Sarafinovsky, 4. Sunis, 4. Werner, 4. Awada, 4. Councillor Barlow, 4. 4. 4. 4. And myself, it's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on, councillors, to 22.023. This is also by division. There's some declarations of interest with this one. 22.023, yep. Are you moving that, Councillor Hanna, or you got a question?
I'd like to actually move an amendment, if I could. Is that possible at this point?
You can, yeah. It hasn't been moved yet, so I moved by Councillor Hanna.
Yeah,
the amendment.
I think our capable staff might have if they could put up my suggested amendment, which is going to be to adopt.
So is this an additional to what's there?
Additional.
Okay,
yes.
so we're keeping what's in, but you want to add
Yes.
another point, okay?
Yes.
This is just for everyone's clarity. Which one is that?
Have you got it there or not? Read it out? Okay. What I'd like to actually propose is that this council adopt the minimum lot sizes and minimum frontages as outlined in the Georges River Local Environment Plan of 2021, as detailed on page 24 of that Local Environment Plan.
Can someone bring that up, or where is that? Seconded by Councillor Barlow. What is that? So is that making it bigger? These are minimum. Okay. And he's... Councillor Hannah, can you just clarify what R2 zone that you're talking about, specifically in that, because it's split between, there's some have smaller and larger, or are you saying this should be across the whole LJ for all of R2?
Look, I'm suggesting in actual fact that we have this across the whole area, because I can't understand the rationale if you are saying a particular side of the LGA already has smaller lot sizes, therefore we're going to reduce them and make them even smaller. To me that doesn't make sense. Now, the reason that I've picked this out is because this was put into the Georges River Local Environment Plan last year, and it seems to be very comprehensive, and it covers off the manor houses, which we don't seem to have covered off with our proposals, and with the minimum lot sizes that they've detailed, it still brings us back 50 square metres from where we were previously, which was 700 square metres for the dual ox. So we are giving a concession there. That's the reason that I've pulled this out, because this is our neighbouring council.
Yep.
And I don't see any reason why we should be saying that on the other side of the Cooks River, because the lot sizes are smaller there, we're actually going to make them even smaller. To me, that doesn't make any sense. Now, if we don't introduce minimum lot sizes and minimum frontages, we're going to have imposed upon us, as we are now, the default position, which is the state government code, which gives us a much lesser lot size. The only protection we have got is with the frontages. I think we need larger lot sizes, and we also need the protection of the minimum frontages, because the dual occupancies that I'm seeing as I walk around the streets that are being built on 700, 800, 900 square metre blocks, because the garages are not counted in the floor space ratio, these buildings are being built cheek to jowl on the entire plot. There's no soft landscaping left. There's no room to put trees. This is reducing our tree canopy dramatically. This, at least in my view, gives us some sort of protection from overdevelopment, and at least gives us an opportunity to get more soft landscaping and a better tree canopy. I think this has been done well by Georges River Council. This has been very well thought out, and I think this is something that we should be looking at very, very thoroughly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hassett. Just to clarify, we're looking at the fourth, where it says dual occupancy for everybody here, zone R2, low density residential, the minimum lot size 650 square metres and minimum frontage of 15 metres. That's correct. Thank you. So just with that, councillors, given that that's now in the as part of the motion, does anyone have any? Does that change anyone's position in relation to their conflict? Councillor Saranovsky.
I have no problems with what Councillor Hannah has said. The only issue I've got is just on the old Rockdale side, no problems. The Botany side, I'm not too sure, because of their land sizes is a lot smaller than ours. I'm not sure what, but I have no problems. No? What's the effect of the Botany side? Will that kill off all the geolocs in Botany? That's my only concern, because I'm comfortable with reducing from the 700 to 650, but what I said many years ago, and Councillor Bowles and the council, it's not the floor space, it's the actual design of the building. That's what we should be focusing on, the design of the building. That's always been fleshy, because over the years you get to see some good geolocs and you get to see some lousy geolocs. And I looked at some some geolock single story at, like at Arncliffe on the corner of West Botany Street and Spring Street. That's actually not a bad development, single story on a corner, but they didn't meet the guidelines of our floor space and all our codes. So the guy came and saw me and Councillor Nargi, the applicant, and said, I can actually build a two-story buildings, but I want to do something different. And he actually built on a corner allotment, beautiful single story, completely unique design house, but it didn't fit the criteria of our geolocks. I have no problems with the spirit of it. My only concern is the, because over in Botany, they've got some, sorry, on the Botany side, our brothers and sisters in Botany, some of the designs are not bad, like, you know, in terms of terrace type design townhouses. So I'm not too sure how we're going to deal with the issue of the Botany side.
Yeah, that's fair enough. There's a couple of issues there. Firstly, it will kill off a lot of it on that side, and I think we probably, my view is we probably just need some more analysis. I understand, Councillor Hannah, what you're saying, and I think it's it's certainly well intended, but there will be impacts, and I don't.
I'm not too sure if Councillor Hannah. I agree 100%, Mark. 1,000,000%.
Yeah, and the department is, what I'm informed, is probably unlikely to accept that. So we probably just need to do a little bit more analysis on this. Yep. Councillor Jansen.
Look, just having received this information tonight, I'm not sure if I'm able to make a decision, because at the information, we did receive supplementary information after the committee that indicated how many properties this would affect on both sides. So I would need to revisit that information, because off the top of my head, I'm not sure how many properties would be affected with these changes. We didn't receive that data, so my decision making is based on what we had previously before us, not just this. I hear what you're saying, but I think it has a greater impact than we realised, because I believe previously there were housing targets that we do need to meet as part of the housing strategy, so that's a factor as well. So I personally feel I can't make a decision on the new addition tonight. Thank you.
That's fine. And what I'd suggest, because I do, Councillor Hannah, support, it was seconded by Councillor Barlow for the record. I support the spirit in which you're approaching it, and what I would suggest is if we defer this until next month's council meeting and ask that that analysis be provided as to the impacts of this change. So not back to committee, we'll go straight, because the problem is that the longer we take to act on this, the more people can submit under the existing regulations. So time is of the essence. That said, it is a significant change, and I think a lot of councillors, myself included, just need to understand the impacts across the broader. So if you're happy to defer this motion for further information to be provided for the next council meeting, in the report body of the next council meeting, I think that might be the way to go.
I think, Mr Deputy Mayor, I think that's the best way to approach this. And I've got to say that in terms of the other side of the Cooks River, that's my personal view about the land size. But it may well be that the best outcome is to have differentiated
That's right.
land, and it could even extend to differentiated minimum frontages as well. So I'm not.
I agree. I think we need to explore what's possible, and for that to be included, come back to us next council meeting. We're not going to go around and red tape. We're just.
My thrust is that I think this is our only opportunity to do our best to try and preserve as much soft landscaping and trees areas as possible. We do have an opportunity to get this in the LEP, provided we can get it approved by the Department of Planning. Here is our neighbour, right? They've done a comprehensive job. They've got it in theirs. I think we've got to do our best to try and get it in ours. Thank you.
As I said, Councillor Hannah, I support the spirit of what you're doing. Councillor Barlow?
Just agreeing with what's being said. I mean, I've been asking for this for over 12 months when I realised it was missing, and why it wasn't the 700 as it was supposed to be. Looking at Georges River, I did ask for that. I had to look it up myself. 650. I think we should be arguing the point that somewhere we've got to stop making the blocks so small that you can't put anything on it. There's some clever designs, and I don't know the street. Would it be King Street, or you've got some very clever ones in Botany that are very tiny, sort of terrace-style houses, but the very narrow frontages. I don't know if it's King Street or I don't know.
There's a
some
few
street
there.
that
Yeah,
I've
there's a
walked
few
up.
little pockets. Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm happy to defer it for the month, and hopefully that we can get a detailed report.
Yeah, and I just ask that we bring that report straight back to council, not to committee, so that way we can make some quick decisions on this. Mr. Barber, is that acceptable? Do you right with that? Okay, all right. So we've got the motion before us, moved by councillors Hannah and Barlow, that this item be deferred to the next council meeting, and Mr. Barber and his. Yep. Give some examples, case studies. Yeah. Yeah. So just, yeah. Yeah. Just some case studies, yeah, I think that's okay, Mr. Barber? Yep, so he's taken some notes, and we'll get that done for next council meeting, and the onus is on us is to ask questions in the meantime and read the report when it's delivered. So we'll put that, item 22.023, all those in favour say aye. Oh, sorry, it's a division. Have to go around, it's a planning matter. Councillor Muscat, for. Councillor Fardell, Councillor Jansen, Saravinovsky, Greta Werner, Councillor Barlow, Councillor Hannah, Councillor Douglas, and myself for. That's carried. Thank you. Is the next one division as well? Yes. Okay. We can call the other councillors back in, please. How come Nachi's the deputy? Halfway there. It's an old list. There's two deputies. Thank you, councillors. We'll keep moving. I'm not. We're now councillors on item CPE 22024, which is the City of Botany Bay, Section 94A. It's a Botany Aquatic Centre. Moved by Councillor Jansen, second by Councillor Naji. Any discussion?
Just a question,
Councillor
and
Barlow.
I'll put it in public. The federal government is now Labor, and I remember that last election, the member for Kingsford, is it?
Yeah.
Promised $10 million for the pool. Maybe we should remind him, now he's in government now.
Yeah.
I do remember the promise.
The pool. Thank you, Councillor Barlow. The pool is fully funded.
Well,
There's no need.
It's fully funded, but it could be better funded with using money other than what we've already got, which could go to something else.
Sure. Thank you.
Through you, is it possible to put it in this motion that we write to him, congratulating him for his re-election and his the promise that he is that a possibility?
Just to be clear, it was not. There was no promises made this election campaign. It was in the previous federal election campaign. So you can't call a federal minister a federal member to make good on promises they didn't make. I think that's a bit unjust. Thank you, Councillor Cedric. We'll vote on this item now. Moved by councillors Jansen and Naji. All those in favour say aye. Against, oh sorry, it's a division. Councillor Muscat, for. Councillor Fidel, Councillor Jansen, Councillor Naji, Councillor Saravinovsky, Councillor Tsunis, Councillor Werner, Councillor Wada, Councillor Barlow, Councillor Hannah, Councillor Douglas, Councillor Cedric, and myself for. Thank you. Next item is 22.025. I think Councillor Douglas declared an interest in that one. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Jansen, seconded by Councillor Awada. Any discussion? We'll vote on this item now. All those in favour say aye. Against, no. Declare that carried. Thank you. We'll recall Councillor Douglas, please. Who declared on this one? 020. Someone asked for it. We're now on. There was no declaration. Okay. Thank you, Council. So now on 11.4, the City Works and Assets Committee, item 22.020, notice of motion. Can I have a mover for that? Councillor Barlow, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Councillor Barlow.
It was just a comment made at the committee that I know the residents think, I need a parking permit, I can have it. I just think that the report that was written was so detailed, and I did ask that when the letters go out for community consultation again, that some of that is detailed in that letter, because they all think they've got a right, and they haven't got a right if they've got parking, off-street parking, or one space or two spaces. So I just congratulate the writer of that report was so good, and it was, anyone got that would suddenly understand that they couldn't have it.
Yeah.
Have a parking thing.
Noted. Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Any other discussion? I'll now put the motion. All those in favour say aye. No. Declare that carried. Thank you. The next... Oh, the baton's been done. Sorry. No one knows the motion. Thank you, councillors. We're on item 12, which is the notices of motion. 12.1. Notice... We'll just wait for that to come up on the screen. Councillor Douglas, accessible beaches for Bayside. Moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Tsunis. Councillor Douglas, did you wish to speak?
Sure, thank you. I'm actually going to read out an email that was sent to me on behalf of a lady who wanted me to convey her thoughts. As a regular visitor to Bayside, I would like to see Bayside Council investigate the inclusion of beach matting and the availability of beach wheelchairs for use. I live within 3 kilometres of Ramsgate Beach and my kids attend Ramsgate Primary School. However, my family and I are unable to fully enjoy this local feature purely because I use a wheelchair. The beach foreshore already has many favourable conditions for wheelchair access that we very much relish, in particular the flat topography, the recently improved walk and cycleway, the proximity to free accessible parking and accessible toilets. This makes beachside activities at Ramsgate attractive to myself and to those with limited mobility. Whilst that is wonderful, what anyone wants to do most on a hot summer's day is to be able to cool off in the water. However, it's the sand that prevents me, and consequently my kids, due to not having close parental supervision, from enjoying the water. Introducing beach matting would allow me to independently get from the boardwalk, down a ramp, and across the sand to enjoy the water. There isn't a lot of sand to cross, but I can only do that in my wheelchair with the support of beach matting. Being able to get my chair to the water's edge would mean I can use my transfer strength to submerge myself in the water. Other people with disabilities may require the use of a beach wheelchair for that shorter submerged transfer, which is why having beach wheelchairs available is important in conjunction with matting. Beach matting would also allow me to retain my dignity. Current workarounds involve me leaving my wheelchair on the boardwalk and crawling over the sand to a shade tent before regaining strength for moving to the water's edge. There really is no reason why I need to forgo my dignity, my independence, or miss out on the experience of being in the ocean when products like beach matting exist. With an already accessible location, such as Ramsgate's beach, the matting and beach wheelchairs are the final step in making the full beach experience accessible to everyone. It is something that Bayside could pride itself on. Our calm bay waters and swimming enclosures are ideal if only council can invest in making them accessible. So the motion is quite simple. It's to do a report on beach matting and other ways Bayside beaches could sign on to the Accessible Beaches campaign, and that council also makes information about current beach wheelchairs available, more widely shared. I do believe there is one at Ramscat already, but there isn't a wide understanding of that in the community on how to access that. So yeah, it's quite simple. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Werner. Councillor Tsounis? Sorry, Councillor
Douglas.
Douglas.
And apologies, before I said Wazir Street instead of, what was the one? Waltz. I made a mistake. I had a Wazir Street tree issue the other day. Yes, beach matting. Beach matting, as far as I understand it, needs to have, and I do understand in some other parts of, in other council areas, they have it permanently fixed. My understanding is it needs to have an organisation that can roll it out and pack it up so it has an integrity. The Ramscat Lifesaving Club, if we're talking about Ramscat in particular, there's only 2 locations that we could have it in if you want an organisation to collect it. Ramscat Lifesaving Club is one, Brighton Bars Athletic Club is the other one, further north. They can unroll it if they've got a capacity with volunteers on a Sunday morning or whenever the volunteers are there. It comes at a cost. The Ramscat Lifesaving Club has made a grant application for one. If that doesn't come through, then we'll look at other sources, and we're trying to get one to incorporate it with the wheelchair we were gifted a little while ago. And the reason why it hasn't been rolled out formally is because of COVID. The organisation limited what it could do in terms of rolling out additional services to the community. We did explore a few things. We need to have insurances and a few other specific skills in place, just in case there is an emergency or is something that we need to deal with. The other issue is the infrastructure required to get wheelchairs from a car park down there has its limitations. It needs to have certain degrees of access, which the Director of City Presentation can tell us. Some of our ramps don't meet that compliant level, that compliant gradient, because the idea is, I think it's a 1 in 40 or something like that, the wheelchair person has to be able to get up and do it themselves. You can push them down, but in case they need to get up, they can't do it themselves because the gradient doesn't meet the requirements, the standards. So we can explore that. The other thing that we explored a few years ago was having parking for disabled persons, the disability parking very close to an area where there is a pathway. And when the Ramscat Beach was redone, there was a conversation that I had with some of the architects that we do actually put the disability parking spots right at the fringe so they can get straight onto the pathways and go down. It's a fair way still, but it's still the best option. So there are opportunities to roll that out if council wants to get involved in having a conversation around that through booking whatever they can. But the organisations that I know, that I mentioned, those 2, are looking actively at rolling that out this summer and giving a limited, when I say limited, only on Sundays, opportunity for people to be able to use the beach wheelchair. Because it's volunteer based, they can only offer so many hours to deliver that service. It's got to start somewhere. So that's where that is in my view. So there's 2 elements to it. One is the beach matting or the rollout mat, and the second is the wheelchair, which is there, but the program's being put into place for this coming summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tsounis. Councillor Jansen?
So I'm 100% in support of making our beaches accessible, but just a question for Councillor Tsounis. I noted that the wheelchair was gifted in February 2021 and there was some media around that. Was there any demand from the community?
Just got to address it through the chair, Councillor
through
Jansen.
the chair, sorry,
Yeah,
through the chair to Councillor Tsounis. Was there any demand following the media surrounding the gifting for use of the beach wheelchair?
Okay. Do you wish to answer, Councillor Tsounis?
There wasn't. The actual wheelchair, because I was in the Morrison's Children Fund, I'm one of the directors on that particular organisation, and we're closely related to the Mars Street Special School. There happened to be a chair there that they hadn't used in ages. It was gifted by another party, and they suggested that we take it on and be able to use it. Now, we were formulating a program to use it, but like I said, COVID befell us. There were some people that come there and from a less able group that come there on a Sunday and park their bus, and they bring out some people on wheelchairs. We've offered it to them last year, but again, they didn't trust us. They needed to have some certainty in what was happening, because obviously they've got their clients and they've got to maintain what they do, rather than just say, here you go, here's a person in a wheelchair, go do whatever you want to do with them, bring them back if you can. So there's protocols that need to be put into place, but there wasn't a big demand. We were actually going to seek that demand through the groups of people that we know. The Ramscat Lifesaving Club is actually this year is going to introduce something called dippers, and I believe they do it at Maroubra, allowing an extra hour after the normal stuff, the normal activities, to incorporate other children that are less able to come and participate. So it's a slow learning curve for us and for the community down there, but we'll get there.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor
Just a
Barlow?
suggestion, I was there for the photo with the wheelchair, that maybe the sailing clubs, we should be speaking to them. They've got access to beaches, the other ones around. So there's avenues there that possibly they'll look at it as well, because once again, you just can't roll it out and hopefully, we've got the wheelchair at Ramsgate Nippers, and admittedly COVID came in, but you can't just say, oh, you can have it. It's all, and it's got the big wheels and everything.
Yep.
It's quite good. So I think too, also maybe sailing clubs might be interested as well.
Yeah.
So especially for the matching, because you've really got to have someone that can bring it in and out.
That's right. Yeah, I think, look, I'm absolutely supportive of this motion. I think it's a fantastic campaign. The challenge, as Councillor Suna said, is the maintenance and getting it out and bringing it in, but that's a challenge, and that's something that we need to work on to overcome, and hopefully through the Accessible Beaches campaign and their stakeholders, they can help us understand that. And of course, this is a great start, and then we can look at the different locations as well. And certainly with the Nippers, I'm a volunteer surf lifesaver, and we do have a special needs program as part of the Nippers program, which is run. It's absolutely fantastic. Everyone's included. They have a great time. They learn a lot, build confidence and skills. So the more people can get onto the beach, into the water, the better, in my view. And I think the bay, we've got these beautiful many kilometres of bayside, and I think that's a perfect location. So, yeah, thank you. We'll now put the motion. All those in... Oh, sorry, right of reply. Yep.
Just quickly as a right of reply, the motion does ask for a report from council, because I do understand some beach matting is permanent as well. The Accessible Beaches campaign have a lot of information they can provide council, and if you want to go and have a look at their website, they also are a directory for people with disabilities on which beaches cater for their needs and what is provided there. So we could encourage groups like Ramsgate to sign up to that as a facility to help promote Bayside in general as a go-to location for these facilities.
And we've got parking too, right? So we can work on that.
Yeah.
So it's a great first start, and let's just again, it's about that accountability. Let's make it happen. So all those in favour say aye. Against no, I declare that carried. Thank you. Item 12.2, councillors. Space for car sharing. Is that Councillor Werner? Is that you? Moved by Councillor Werner. The seconder, Councillor Douglas. Councillor Werner.
Yeah, thank you. So, just wanted to explain that car sharing is a variation of car rental. And the difference is that cars are situated so that they serve a catchment of ideally within a 5-minute walking distance, and they can be rented by the hour. So according to SGS Economics, a cost-benefit analysis of car share shows that council can expect a net benefit of $200,000 through the implementation of car share, calculated by a benefit ratio of 19 to 4. This net benefit increases with the size of the car share network. For example, a network of over 450 vehicles would constitute a $20 million net benefit to council, according to SGS Economics. Georges River Council, the Inner West Council, Hornsby Shire Council have conducted car share trials. Car share spaces have been provided near transport interchanges, so that means people can catch the train or the light rail and then they can finish their journey with a car shared car, which they can drop off again on their way back. So council currently makes car share spaces available for a car sharing service in Mascot and Woolai Creek, and this could possibly be expanded to other areas of the LGA. And now I've got some quotes from car share users and what they've said about the service this year. Someone said, the benefit lies in the fact that sharing a vehicle means that people don't have cars parked idle, which means less cars on the street and therefore better impact on the environment. It's also cheaper as you don't have to take care of maintenance, rego, insurance, etc. Someone else said car sharing is much cheaper than owning a car and it saves you all of the hassle of washing the car regularly and servicing the car. There's quite a lot of things people have said here. I don't want to take up too much time, but other people have said it's convenient for infrequent car use, and sometimes if you suddenly need a car, saves a lot of costs and could be more available. As right now the cars are quite sparse and often take around 10 minutes walk to reach. And so I guess they're asking for more car sharing spaces. So yeah, I hope that that you support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jansen?
Look, I'm in support of this motion, but I'm just proposing an addition to it. So in point 1, I'm proposing that we reference the draft DCP, which we've just decided to put on exhibition. So that sentence would then be that council develops a car sharing policy that expands on the provisions in the draft Bayside DCP and presents it to the relevant committee, because there are 2 pages in the draft DCP that now are about provisions for new and emerging transport and parking facilities. So there's a whole section on car share schemes and a whole section on EV charging. So I think it's more, it gives it more strategic relevance if it references that DCP, those DCP provisions. So if you're happy to accept that, that's my suggestion.
So I think, Councillor Werner, are you okay with, so it's based, I think what Councillor Jansen is saying is that it's in the draft DCP, let's use that as a starting point to develop the policy, so it's not 2 individual pieces. So we'll just get the wording up so everyone knows what that is. Do you want to just, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Souness, in a second. I just want to get the wording up. Yeah, and Councillor Douglas, you okay with that amendment? Thank you.
Look, I'm in favour of including rights, so to speak, that's great. But there's 2 elements to this that I can see. The draft DCP talks about parking off-street. It doesn't talk about on-street parking, so there's 2 opportunities. I've got a parking spot at One Martin Place where they've got under street, they've got, it's a 4-level car park. They've got 1 level dedicated to go there, plus charging stations. Okay? That'll be captured in the DCP. So that's a commercial arrangement that the owner of that building has to have these facilities on board. The other area that I saw, and I've been recently working at Chatswood, I could see on Help Street, there's 2 charging stations next to 2 dedicated charging station spots, which no one else can park in, only people that charge can use them. And around the corner on Macintosh Street, there's a dedicated, I don't know if it's Go Get or Red Spot or whatever it is, a dedicated parking spot for a car that people can hop in and drive away, which is a car sharing car, I guess, if that's what the term is. So we need to make a conscious decision whether we do one or 2 things. The draft DCP, we implement something that you can have. If you've got a block of so many apartments that has so many parking spots, do we enforce X number of spaces to be this, you'll be saying you must have a charging station. Because I've been listening on the news, there've been people arguing in Australia on properties where people have been doing it cheaply and plugging their cars in and saying, well, we're using our electricity. You didn't ask anyone. That aside, the other issue is, do we go and talk to the community and say, are you happy to lose X number of parking spots? Because if we're rolling this out across our suburbs, there'll be at least one or two that will be taken up. Are we happy to do that? That's where the policy needs to head, and I don't think we're going to reinvent the wheel. There's plenty of other councils that are doing this now. We're even doing it in certain precincts within our area, but do we want to give away a parking spot? Is it commercially viable for, say, Rockdale? It might be more viable, the more affluent part of our LGA that there is a demand for it. We can't make the decision. The car sharing company has to say, we think that people will actually use their credit card and take a car in this location. We need to explore that, rather than us, well, what are we going to do? Create a spot and then knock on the door of a spot and say, come and park your car here and see how you go. It's not going to work that way. It's going to be very strategic, because it does have knock-on implications. The one that's in the actual buildings of development impacts the ratio of car spots. The one on the street impacts the street. If you have near stations, again, you've got that 400-metre rule that impacts what we do. We need to be very strategic, because everything we say and do, we're always talking about not enough parking. Every word, every second letter is no parking, no parking, no parking. So we've got to think about what we're doing. The rollout of EV charging stations, again, that's dependent on cars. I've been listening on the radio in the past few days. The cost of the car needs to halve before we can have an actual impact on the community. So no one's going to go and buy an EV car because it's notionally cheap. It's not. In the long run, there's cost to it. The carbon effect is still massive. The carbon footprint is massive. It needs to get to a point where it's viable. People can have their cars and then charge them. There's no point if there's 20 cars or 50 cars in our area, we put specific charging stations, which are underutilised. Because when cars first came on the scene, we didn't build petrol stations to support them in the 1920s. The petrol stations grew themselves out of demand. It's the same thing. I can't see why 7-Elevens and all these other organisations can't put charging stations within their particular sites. And the reason why they don't do it is they don't want to usurp a spot with someone sitting there for an hour or two charging their car when they can have people coming and going all the time buying their bits and pieces and get a good yield on their return. So it's very strategic. Our square metres of parking is expensive, and we've got to be very strategic how we deal with it.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Jansen.
Through you, Chair, can I ask the relevant director? Oh, sorry. Can I ask the relevant director how the scheme has worked so far? What the process is for those that are in Mascot and Walleye Creek?
Through you, Chair, that's correct. We do have a small number of spaces in both of those locations. They've been approaches that have been made to council through the car share providers, but we don't have in place at this point in time a policy to guide those decisions. And as Councillor Sinner says, there's a lot of things to consider. City of Sydney has a good policy, in my view. It's very detailed. It looks at supply and demand, and it makes the car share providers accountable. They have to provide reports on how often their cars are being used, how many members they have in that vicinity signed up already to justify the demand for them, that sort of thing. So we would need that to deal with the spaces on the street, as Councillor Sinner said. The spaces on private property can be dealt with through the DCP. And we have also had some dabbling, I guess, in that area with private developers, particularly those who have fewer car spaces than we might like. They've offered to accommodate some shared vehicles as an alternative. So we've done some work in that area, but the DCP will formalise that on private property as well.
Thank you, Mr. Barlow.
Can I just quickly ask for clarity? In the Walleye Creek area, it's a private road, I understand, private road network. How many actual spaces are dedicated for that particular use?
Through your Chair, the exact number I'm not sure of. It's in the order of 2 to 4, something like that. I think there's 2 in Mascot and 4 in Waller Creek, or the other way around, but it's that sort of number, not a great number yet.
Councillor Douglas?
I just wanted to speak on a couple of the points you raised, Councillor Souness. So in terms of parking, this is actually about reducing cars on the road. So from my lived experience, I didn't have a car for 3 years because I was using car shares. And they're an amazing way to save money. They're also an amazing way to keep fit because you have to walk to pick up the car. You can save, when I did the maths on it, I was saving $160 a week from not having my own personal vehicle. With the increase in fuel costs, that's more like $260 a week savings. It's a massive savings for anybody on a low income, middle income, and it kept a car off the road on my street. You know, I only have street parking. There was a free spot in front of my house for those 3 years. So it is actually an initiative to reduce car parking. In terms of your point about affordable electric vehicles, I don't know if you saw the news, but on Friday, our Honourable Minister for Energy and Climate Change announced the beginnings of a policy for fuel efficiency standards in Australia. So currently, Australia is one of only 2 developed nations in the OECD, the other with Russia, that doesn't have fuel efficiency standards, which means that we don't have any checks and balances for encouraging car manufacturers to bring affordable electric vehicles to Australia. So we don't have any penalties or incentives for those cars to come here, which is why we only have the expensive electric vehicles in Australia. So when Bowen finalises this policy, we will suddenly have a renewed space in terms of electric vehicles in Australia very, very soon. In New Zealand, at the National Electric Vehicle Summit I attended on Friday, the New Zealand Transport Minister addressed us and said that they have gone from a 2% electric vehicle share in their market to 20% in 1 year after the policy of fuel efficiency standards has been enacted. So we are going to be seeing a massive change in electric vehicles on the road, and we need to keep ahead of that curve and service our community.
Hold on, just before you speak again, did Councillor Fardell?
I live at Woollow Creek, where the car share is. It's the Discovery Point development, which has got 16 buildings. The newer buildings, there's about, there's 13 newer buildings. Quite a few of the one-bedroom apartments don't have parking. So as far as I'm aware, it was a requirement of the developer to provide car share. So as I said, it's 3 or 4 spaces, I can't quite remember now. So it works quite well. The only comment I would make is that I was actually contacted by someone who lives in Woollow Creek who uses the car share quite a bit, and they're very happy with it. But he said that sometimes when he returns to return the car, someone's parked there who shouldn't be there, then he can't park his car there. So then he has to find another spot to park it, and if the other car shares are full, you know, there's nowhere he can park it. So then he has to park it streets away in a non-car share, and then he gets fined by the car share company, quite a hefty fine. So my point is that when we look into this, because I'm all for car share, I think it's a really sensible idea, but we need to have something in place, a sign or something saying along the lines of, you know, it's illegal to park here if you're not car share and there are fines or whatever. Otherwise, people are going to be really inconvenienced. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, the signage I've observed is go get or red spot parking only, but they ignore it. And just some of the comments that were made here today.
Briefly.
And I'll be very quick, very brief.
Yep.
The managing director of Ampol came out yesterday and said, for electric cars to be financially viable in Australia, they need to be half the price they are today, half the sticker price, I think he said. Maybe he's American, I don't know. The other problem is we have a hefty luxury car tax that throws those cars way, way over where they should be. So that needs to be looked at. The federal government can do what it likes to do, but it needs to drop the cost so people can actually walk into those cars. Like, I'm not against it. I'm thinking of putting a charging station in my house. I can get one. I'm totally against it. Yeah, we've trialled it in Canberra. The other comment I was going to make is, not everyone is the best with the metrics of having a hire car. There's people, I will tell you now, that grab the parking spots that are free on Bay Street along here at Rockdale and leave it for the whole week. They'll only move it on the weekend. And you can tell because there's rubbish lined up along. Our sweeper has never touched the footpath along Bay Street. So people, we can't change the psyche of people. We can offer it to them. You can't lead the horse to water. It's going to drink itself if it wants to drink. The economics and the metrics of it will fall into place. We just need to have a policy that doesn't adversely impact the limited parking space, because every time, like I said, we talk about parking spaces not being enough, and we can't force things down the throats of developers through the DCP and say you must have this, because then they have to enter into a commercial arrangement with a third party, which maybe they didn't want to. So we've got to be very careful. Okay, we can develop a policy. There's a lot of other organisations that have done that. We've got to do what's right for our community.
Yep.
I'm not saying we're the same as everyone else, but there's learnings to be found elsewhere.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barlow?
I suppose I'm the oldest person in the room, so I agree with the policy, but in that policy, it fascinates me. We've got public roads with private cars on them. Is council charging them to use our public land or not? Because in Inner West, my daughter was house sitting years ago in Glebe. They're everywhere, and she said they're marked, they're painted on the road. There's 2 spots. Now, you can't park there if you're a public person that hasn't got one of their cars. So I'm assuming that we gain a financial benefit from it. Otherwise, we're giving away public land to a private company. So that's one thing I'd like to see in the policy, because I believe you just can't. It doesn't matter if it's a public van. There's no benefit if it costs our residents a parking spot for a business to gain money that we're not.
Is that a question you'd like answered about the current
I'd like
ones?
that has to go into to be in part of the. Well, it's actually a presentation, I think, because virtually there's other questions that you need to know, and that's one that I think is very important. I mean, the ones in Wallow Creek, and I looked it up. But the ones there's 2 in Wallow Creek. They're both private roads. I didn't know IKEA has a massive EV stations. My daughter works there, but she said someone comes there, sits there, plugs his car in and reads his book. But they're free because it's on their land. Today on Facebook, Bexley North Hotel has just published that they've got their EV, they've just put in an EV charging station. Come in, charge your car, go in and have dinner or have whatever, not a drink, go in and enjoy your dinner. So they are very proud, so they've put one in. So you might find, and I don't understand, I mean, it's the old school part of it, but I don't understand us paying for EV charging station. I know there's grants coming out at the moment, but to me, the parking is quite dramatic in a lot of our places, Bexley, Rockdale, everywhere on the Botany. But I think there's a lot of public buildings now that are putting them in.
Yep.
So it is there, and I don't think. I mean, okay, everyone will have an electric, or a lot will have an electric car when the price comes down. I don't think it's going. Until then, the average person isn't going to have one. And yes, I did have a Russian car, a Lada Niva.
Lada.
20-odd years ago.
You don't see those on Bay Street though, Liz.
It was the best. It was the best 4-wheel drive. Horrible car.
Anyway, councillors, I think we've.
Anyway, that's all I'd like in the
I
policy,
think we've
because I
exhausted debate on
really
this
would like to
item.
know who pays for the public land.
Liz, was it light yellow?
Yeah, my comment just very briefly, this is like a lot of other things, other matters tonight, this is a start. We do need a policy at the moment. It's a scattered approach. This is a start. All policies, as you know, come to council for review. They're on they go to public consultation. It's have your say. So I'm sure that if anything needs to be raised at that time, if anyone needs something added or removed or changed, we're going to have the opportunity to do that. But this is a great start. Councillor Werner, right of reply.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone's contributions. I think it's a really important debate to have, and I think I'm sure that can all be ironed out when we look at the policy that council produces. I just wanted to say one thing, just to add to what Councillor Douglas said. The car share spots actually save parking, and I don't have the statistics here, but for every car share spot, it does save a number of private cars being on the road. So I think it can potentially actually save and solve some of our parking issues that we currently have, because that, you know, when we go and speak to people, that is usually the number one thing that people mention, is that they have trouble finding somewhere to park their car. So I think hopefully this can help to address that problem. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll now vote on this item, which is item 12.2. All those in favour say aye. Against, no. Declare that carried. Thank you. Item 12.3, notice of motion, the Walleye Creek Regional Park. This is also...
Sorry, can I withdraw that motion? And actually the reason is that the...
Sorry, 12.3?
Yeah, the Walleye
Right.
Creek Regional Park. The reason being is the Walleye Creek Preservation Society is having its AGM tonight, and they have people who wanted to speak to this motion. So I would like to request that it be withdrawn. Thank you.
Well, I think, Councillor, one of the best thing to do is just seek an amendment that be deferred to the next council meeting. That way it stays on the agenda. So would you like to move that? And is there a seconder? Councillor Saravanovsky. So the motion is that this item be deferred to the next council meeting. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? I declare that carried. Thank you. Item 12.4, investigations the migration of crumb rubber. Councillor Werner. Moved by Councillor Werner, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Councillor Werner.
Yep, thank you. I've actually sent through an amendment, and I'm wondering if you've received it. I guess what I want to say about it is the same. So while we're waiting for the new motion, maybe I'll start speaking to them, or do I need to? Okay. So I'm putting this motion forward because the dangers of microplastics migrating off synthetic fields are becoming more apparent. The New South Wales EPA is currently investigating the levels of microplastics created as litter from synthetic fields and the impacts of microplastics to the environment. And actually yesterday in budget estimates, the Honourable Penny Sharp asked Mr. Chappell from the EPA where they were up to with the report on the synthetic turf, and Mr. Chappell said that, and I'll quote, "In terms of microplastics, there are a number of regulatory bans coming in November in personal care, and then there's a much broader review of the next stage of that legislative agenda that the EPA will kick off the following year." It is really, I think, something that touches almost every aspect of modern life, so we need to really engage very deeply with the community in terms of helping people understand the need to shift to sustainable alternatives, and then helping industry understand the imperative for them to look at their own products and shift to more sustainable alternatives. And that was in direct reply to the question from the Honourable Penny Sharp. Also, the European Chemical Agency, their Committee for Risk Assessment in 2019 supported the restriction of intentionally used microplastics in synthetic fields. The safety data sheet from Gannon Limited, which is a company that specialises in recycled end-of-life car tyres, and those are the rubber crumb that's actually used at Gardner Park. Their material safety data sheet states that data is not available about the toxicology of the product. So, and it also states that the dust is flammable and things like that. So, if we sort of consider that there's a plastic ban happening, and the state government is trying to reduce plastics, I think this all basically tells us that it's really important to address the microplastics coming off synthetic fields, and the Georges River Council has unanimously resolved to investigate measures that are taken to prevent microplastics from migrating off synthetic fields, and so I hope that we can support a similar motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Werner. Any other speakers to this motion? I'm sorry, go, Mr.
Thank you,
Councillor
Deputy.
Hannah.
Just through you, I'm just wondering whether we could get some idea of the cost of this, because I'm also mindful of point 3, that we are waiting for this report from the chief scientist, and I don't know whether or not, doing this before we get that report, we might be expending a whole lot of money on stuff where we're going to get a lot of answers from that report. So have we got any idea how much, implementing these measures might cost?
Yeah, through GM.
Through the chair. The component of this that we would have to do a little bit more research into to come back to you with costings is actually point 2, because what skill is required to conduct an annual survey, who does that, how they do it, any cost implications of that, I would have to come back to you with information about that. The other parts, I think, of the motion, which asks for us to investigate additional maintenance measures on top of what's already happening on our fields. If you've got no issues with that, we can certainly do that and come back to you advising what is currently happening and what other measures might be able to be put in place, and if there is a cost at all to that. But the annual survey, I think, sounds so it could be a technically specialist activity, and I would just need to be able to work out and do a little bit more background on who, how and what the cost of that is.
So, Councillor Werner, would you be happy to sort of reword? I understand the intent of number 2, but Council doesn't know how to achieve that or what cost that will be, so perhaps something along the lines of investigating how it may be, how it be completed and the cost to do so. Up to you.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I do want to say that in Georges River Council, in that area, it was actually a community group that did a survey, and it was with Dr. Scott Wilson. So that could be one thing, is maybe instead of saying that that council, maybe investigates the cost of conducting an annual survey, but council could also contact Dr. Scott Wilson, and there may be some way of working with him, and he might know local community groups that might do that, because in the Georges River area, it was the Oatley Flora and Fauna Conservation Society, and this is reported in the Leader. They conducted a survey where they found 1 million pieces of crumbed rubber within an area of about 400 square metres. But so that was a citizen science project, and maybe that could be a way of reducing the cost of of that.
Yeah, thank you. I think probably just, I don't think we need to put it here, but if you'd send any experts or expertise that you wish to through the GM to her office, and that will then help inform number 2
Thank you. I'd be happy to.
Okay, Councillor Douglas.
It's just, you go first. I support this motion because I've had numerous residents contact me showing evidence of rubber crumb going into drainways beside the synthetic fields, and I know that I've spoken to a member of one of the soccer clubs who said that there's some sort of filtration system in the drains that captures all the rubber crumbs. I don't know if that, I haven't seen it. I'd like to know more about that. I'd like to know what is the, what safety nets we actually have to stop that rubber crumb going into the waterways. So if we could also include that within the motion, Councillor Werner, through the chair, of an awareness with council of what current measures are being done to
Yeah,
prevent the rubber crumb.
So I think that's probably relevant. So I'm just looking at the minutes here. That I think that's covered in point 1 there. That's I think the intent is what we're doing now, and what we could be doing, right? And we want to know what we're doing now, and then see if there's a gap. I think that's where we're going. So I think that's just in number 1.
I think number 1's only the additional measures though, so it would be, I think I would agree, it would be good to find out what the current measures are.
Sure, motion. So do you want to add that as a separate point to advisors of the current?
Yeah, that council advises what current measures, current mitigation measures
Maintenance
are.
and preventative actions. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, one sec. We just want to get it up there, then I'll come to you, Councillor Tsunas. Okay. Thank you.
If I can get a second, I'd like to shut down all the synthetic fields until further notice. No, just joking.
We've done that.
No, I'd like to move a motion. Look, there's a lot of information up on the board. We've sat, a number of councillors here have sat inside information sessions and had lengthy discussions from experts in a lot of fields talking about what's a good word? The validity and the effectiveness of synthetic turf and not having major impacts on the environment. That's fine. We've had that conversation. It's a few years ago now, I believe. In this environment, I'd like to move a motion that we defer this matter to an information session so we can get a bit more information. Oh, we're changing, we're cutting, we're doing. I'd like to know what the rubber crumb is. I'd like to know how big is that particulate going into what drain. Like, no one's contacted me. Maybe I don't speak to enough people. But what's happening? If that's an impact now going into, say, let's use Adore Avenue as an example, going into the waterway right next to it, that's a big issue. We need to know that.
Sorry, Councillor Sooners, is this a foreshadowed motion?
Well, we've got whatever we want.
It's not an amendment.
Foreshadowed motion.
He's saying we stop it.
Foreshadowed motion, whatever the wording
So
is. I don't have Councillor McDougall to score me.
6. Yeah.
So if I could
Just
second it for
hold,
that,
the
then we
GM
can
just
move
wants to make a
forward.
comment. Thank
Sorry,
you.
Rather than get into motions and foreshadowed and amendments, if we go back up to point 1, please. Council investigates and reports to an information session about maintenance measures, blah, 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 blah. Like, I think that captures both of your intents. It didn't, the original motion doesn't say where that investigation will go. So I'm thinking that.
Additional maintenance measures. So we have a maintenance regime.
We've captured it.
No, additional, I don't know what that means. We have a maintenance regime. We build the synthetic turf. The guy says, here's your maintenance log with maintenance protocols that you need to follow. I assume we're following, whether it's us or whether it's city presentation does that. Whoever does that, we follow that routine. Now, do we need to go off that pathway because we've learned something new? That's what the information session's about.
That's I think the intent of this point, Councillor Sooners. So you're saying what's on this. You're saying what's already there.
Well, I don't know.
It says in.
Additional really concerns me because now you're going to force an organisation that's doing X to do X and Y.
Investigate additional maintenance measures. So and it could well be, councillors, it could well be that we are already following best practice and there's no change required. It could be that other LGAs have a different regime. We think actually that could be beneficial here, but we could be best practice. We don't know. That's what this report and I think this question is seeking to address. So I think it's all covered there. Council investigates and reports to an information session. Additional maintenance measures in addition to those already employed to reduce the migration, etc. So Councillor Werner and Douglas, are you happy with the wording? Councillor Douglas? Fantastic. We'll put Councillor Barlow?
Actually, I think it's installation, it's a little bit there, because scrolled up. That's it. Use of vacuums or other equipment to remove leaf litter, not leaf blowers. Now, the people that rent these fields maintain the fields. So we're going to say, you can rent this field, but you can't use a leaf blower. I know that the hockey field is synthetic. They use leaf blowers because they can't.
So just,
They
we'll give you the right of reply. Councillor Werner, you have the right of reply.
It doesn't matter. It's the fact that you've either got to say to everybody, so you're saying now in that wording that we're going to tell the people that are going to at least...
That's not what it says, Councillor Barlow. It's
No, they're not.
It's investigating these things,
They're
including
going to
these types of
investigate
things.
it, but...
It's not
okay.
mandating
So
any
obviously
change.
there's complaints about leaf blowers and
Yeah.
instead
There's
of
no
that-
mandate to change
Yeah,
what we're
anyway,
doing.
okay, it'll all come back. Good.
Yeah.
Just a right of reply, in terms of your point around leaf
So
blowers.
Councillor Werner's got the right of reply.
Oh, sorry. Just in terms
Last,
of your...
last comment.
The leaf blowers...
Last comment and then right of reply.
In terms of leaf blowers, leaf litter, Councillor Barlow, I did follow up with council staff about a complaint. There was video footage of a leaf blower being used to push the microplastics from that synthetic field into a drainway, and I was told by council staff that that's actually not permitted as a form of maintenance. What Councillor Werner was trying to say is that the hockey field is not a rubber infill field, it's a different type of synthetic field. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Werner, right of reply, if you wish.
I
Don't have
just
to.
wanted to say thanks for the amendments, and I think the motion's looking good, and I'm looking forward to the information session. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now vote on this item, item 12.4. All those in favour say aye. Against no. Declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We're now on to item 12.5, bird nesting boxes in Bayside, moved by Councillor Fardell, seconded by Councillor Jansen. Councillor Fardell. I saw her first.
Bit of light relief in the motions. I've just tell you a little bit about my reasoning. It's more in a question and answer form of sort of frequently asked questions. So why are nesting boxes needed? To provide an alternative to tree hollows for hollow nesting birds and also some mammals and reptiles. Why is an alternative needed? 17% of native birds, 42% of native animals and 28% of native reptiles use tree hollows in Australia. Tree hollows are always very old. Small hollows take 50 plus years to form and large hollows take 100 plus years to form, usually 150 years to form. Many very old trees are cut down as people are very worried that they might blow out, the tree might blow over in the wind or a branch fall off in the wind, and also they're often not aesthetically pleasing. So old trees are being mown down left, right and centre in urban areas. Don't most birds build nests? Well, as I've already mentioned, 17% of birds use tree hollows. In the Sydney urban area, which is what we're talking about, in this area we've got laughing kookaburras, kingfishers, there's 7 species, crimson rosellas, eastern rosellas, musk loripetes, red rump parrots, cockatoos, pink and grey galahs, tree martins, dollar birds, Australian wood ducks, 7 species of owls, not the powerful owl. That's another story if you're ever interested. And many other birds that usually nest will alternatively use a tree hollow if they can't find a suitable nesting tree. So there's a hell of a lot of birds that need nesting hollows to breed. Why don't the birds just look further afield? Tree hollows are so rare in urban areas they've become prime real estate. Australian birds are the most territorial in the world. So if a bird moves into another's territory, the resident bird will mount a rigorous defence. There can only be one winner. It's a bit like a Sydney auction. Birds can't move to the country either, as millions of old hollow-bearing trees were destroyed in the devastating bushfires of 2019-2020, making real estate there even more sought after. Birds not only benefit our urban environment, for instance dispersing seeds and pollination of some plants, but bring joy with their song and beauty to many people. As just an interesting fact, did you know that 60% of the world's birds, over 6,000 species, are descended from Australian birds? Most of the world's songbirds, for instance, are descended from Australian songbirds. So most of the birds in the world actually came from Australia when we were Gondwana. My hope is that Bayside will become a leader in the area of conserving and encouraging bird life. Now you'll notice that the council said the motion says that council investigates and reports back on the most appropriate locations for bird nesting boxes to be placed in trees in our parks and open spaces. Seeks competitive costing and construction and installation. It doesn't specify what type of boxes. Now, usually you go for wooden boxes. That's what everybody does. But there are other alternatives. So because this motion is fairly open, we could look at things like habitat boxes, which have been invented by Australian scientists. Trouble with wooden boxes is, even if you make them out of marine ply, if you make them out of marine ply and you paint them, maybe you'll get 10 years out of them. Boxes like the habitat boxes will last forever. They will be more expensive to buy initially, but they will last forever. And they're also built in such a way that in summer they're cooler, in winter they're warmer. So the birds actually survive much better in them. They come in all different shapes and sizes. I've already spoken to council, and probably council staff could install it. So there's a cost there, a cost saving there. So the main cost would be actually purchasing the boxes. And also we'd have to work out, we can't just get let's order 200 boxes with a hole this size. You know, there's different birds need different types of boxes, so that would have to be investigated. But we have a fabulous department within council, an environmental department, who can assist with that. I've already worked with them when we put the boxes into Bardwell Valley Golf Course, so they're, you know, really fabulous, knowledgeable people. So the idea is we don't go mad and purchase a whole lot and put them in parks left, right, centre, because the council doesn't have the money. The idea would be it would be a process over many years, and we'd gradually do this. And as I said, I hope we might then be a leader in this area, because so many of our birds are threatened. Even kookaburras in the urban area, they've just released a report saying kookaburras are on their way out in urban areas. I mean, that's unbelievable that we're losing kookaburras. Not in the bush, but we're losing kookaburras in the urban area. And one of the reasons is they don't have nesting hollows to, you know, have their families. So I was just reading the other day down at Tempe, apparently the local school cut down a couple of trees, and there was a kookaburra family that had been using the tree for generations. So now they've got nowhere, and now they're fighting with the kookaburra family in the next tree, which is some way away because they have very big territory. So people have been reporting that there's big punch-ups between the two kookaburra families. Well, only one family is going to win. So it's actually quite bad. If you're not sort of really into birds like I am, you probably wouldn't realise how bad things are, but they really need help. So that's behind my motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fidel. Councillor Jansen.
I'm just wondering that as part of this motion we may even add something that council does some community education about bird nesting boxes in your own backyards as well. We do have a lot of birdos in Bayside and a number of birdo groups, so birds are very popular. They are unique to our area, but I think it would be good to spread that message out to the community. Maybe that community ed can be done by the Rockdale Flock or some of those birdo groups.
I run Woolay Creek Birdos, so more than happy to assist.
What is it? Rockdale?
Woolay Creek Birdos.
Oh, Flock Dodos. I was going to suggest, how about we look at doing an opportunity for people in the community to sponsor a bird box, to not to put their name on it, because certain people don't like that, but they can donate X amount, and it could be in Cook Park or one of the bigger parks. No, I don't want that. I don't want that.
So are we putting that, would you like that in the motion? So it's your motion.
We could have in the motion, investigate ways to fund. I mean, I've already suggested we look at grants, but I don't know whether there are grants for this sort of thing. But investigate ways of funding, and that leaves it open.
Which could include community sponsorship.
Yep.
Or sponsorship by the community. Let's not go there. Okay, Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'm just wondering whether or not there's a possibility of working out a way to move on IBIS. I notice you didn't mention IBIS, but we do. I don't know whether they don't seem to like. They don't seem to go for the nesting boxes. They go for the date palms, and and we really do have a terrible problem outside the Jack and Jill preschool, a terrible problem. They're in plague proportions there. So, and as you know, they are protected. Now, I'm just wondering whether or not there is a way that somehow we can attract them to a better habitat where they're not causing all sorts of problem for the children in the preschool, because they can't use their front playground because of the faeces, and they get dead birds on the verge and actually into the playground. So I'm fully in favour of this. I think it's fantastic. And I've got to say, when I swim down at Bexley Pool, I'm now competing with 2 wood ducks who are in one of the lanes sometimes, and I'm noticing
Who wins?
around my area there's actually a lot more kookaburras. So whatever we're doing, when I go along the Prime Minister's Walk, I'm looking at the bird boxes there, and I'm hearing a lot more kookaburras, particularly when I'm at Bexley Pool. They're probably laughing at my style, but nevertheless I'm hearing them. So this is terrific. I'm fully in favour of it, but I think during the process we need to look at how, if we've got a spot where we've got pest birds, even though they're protected, the ibis birds there at Jack and Jill are causing all sorts of problems. Can we somehow work out something where we can move them to a better spot? That's my. I mean, we don't have to formalise that.
Yeah,
Mr.
I
Deputy
think
Mayor, but I want to throw it out there because it's
I understand the sentiment. I think we're moving away from the intent of this motion with that. So I think this motion is about bird protection, putting some boxes in. I think ibis is a problem across many local government areas, and it's a difficult problem to solve. But I think it's something that can be looked into.
Just make the comment, there was trees chopped down, I think it wasn't near Cogra High, it was Cogra High School, but it wasn't birds, it was possums. Now, the Fix-It sisters made a couple of boxes for the possums, and they've now got no problems because they'd found a home. And with your kookaburra, I think you need to urgently get another box there, because it was Cogra High had all these large trees along Railway Street opposite the railway line, and they all had to come out because they damaged so much. So there's other animals that are affected, but I think the birds, and I get kookaburras at my place, which is quite amazing, on my clothesline. And I go, so look, yes, and I think noisy miners shouldn't be protected either. That's another one. I've lost all my native birds because of them.
Yeah. Okay, councillors. Councillor Fidel, right of reply, if any.
No, I'm happy with the motion.
Fantastic. We'll now vote on this item, which is item 12.5. All those in favour say aye. Against, I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on now to item 13. Any questions with notice? Councillor Barto. Oh, was it? Oh. Do we need a... What? What is it? Oh. 11 point. So, is it something we need to recommit, or can we just, yeah? Did you have to recommit that, or can we? Okay, we just need to vote to so Councillor Barr, you're moving to recommit that, seconded by Councillor Awada. That's all right. We just have to recommit it because we've already dealt with it. And this is item 11.4 BTC. Is it 098? 22098. Yep. We just got to get the words up. We'll just get this on the screen and then we don't have to revisit it later on. So that the minutes be amended to delete the word, is it Wardell Street? Or did you say Warrialda? No, I was just watching it as it's being typed. I thought you said Warrialda. Moved by Councillor Barlow, seconded by Councillor Wada. All those in favour say aye. I declare that carried. Thank you. Now we're on to item 13, questions with notice. Yep. Have you emailed them? Are they on the... Okay, we'll email them through to who? Mr. Sir? Yep. Hold on. Councillor Cedric.
Just a quick question through you, whether this could be answered now or in a future time. What are the next steps for the redevelopment of the Brighton Boulevard car park?
That's a question with notice.
Sorry, just a quick question, so what are the next steps for the redevelopment of the Brighton Boulevard car park? Now that Mr. Morgan, this doesn't need to be a question. Now that Mr. Morgan, who worked so hard on the parking scheme, and Mr. Mamo, who were quite involved and did an amazing job of putting this forward, this project. Now that they've gone, I'm just concerned that this is going to go down and be a...
That's right. That'll be responded to the appropriate committee.
Please, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions with notice, councillors? Councillor Douglas, you've sent all yours through. Yep. Perfect. How many were there? Just for the record, just 3. There was 3 questions submitted by Councillor Douglas. Yep. Any other questions? Councillor Werner?
Yep. I just wanted to know, so in February, we had a notice of motion about climate action, and that was deferred to a councillor information session, and I would just like to know when that information session is going to be. Thank you.
So do you want to email that through just... Oh, sorry, it's up there. Sorry. There's been so much moving on the screen. Okay. If there's no further no further questions, we'll conclude the meeting at 9:53 p.m. Thank you, councillors. We'll just wait for YouTube to close.